I've got a very impressive owner-built daily driver in today for a dyno checkup. He's not only built the car himself, he's also tuned it himself. And looking at the car and the specs, which I'm going to run you through in a minute, it looks very impressive. Let's go over the car. Engine specs on this car is a Tomei 2.8 litre bottom end. He's also got Tomei Type A camshafts and valve springs. We are running a pair of 2871 Garrett turbos. The car is on flex fuel. Flex fuel means that it can run on any blend of petrol and ethanol. At the moment, our petrol and ethanol blend is sitting at 83, so we're at E83. He normally drives this on pump fuel, and that's the advantage of flex fuel setups. In a flex fuel setup car, there is a sensor in the fuel system that measures how much ethanol you've got inside your tank. So when the car can measure the amount of ethanol in the fuel, it can also then alter the tune to suit the ethanol content that you've got in your fuel at the time. So advantage of this setup, rather than having dual maps or two maps, one for E85, one for pump fuel, say, is that if you hit a midpoint, let's say you're at E50 because you've got half a tank of each, it can then self-adjust to that concentration of ethanol and petrol. So it's really best of both worlds. So when you fill the car up, whatever fuel you've got in the tank, it self-adjusts, and the tune-up is basically correct for whatever conditions and fuel that you've got in the engine at the time. It is obviously more time consuming. It's a lot trickier to set up, because essentially you really need to tune the car on E85. If that's your upper concentration, then you need to tune the car on pump fuel. What you also need to do afterwards is hit all the intermediate points in between to make sure that the computer's correcting and applying the right corrections along the way. For instance, for E20, E40, E60, you want to make sure that the engine's still running the correct tune-up. In most cases, just running standard correction is good enough to get you in the ballpark, but if you want to do a good tune-up and you want everything precise, you really need to hit those in-between points to get the correct tune-up for all cases. Let's walk around the car. Ooh, okay, we've got the R888 tyres. I do find these tyres show less power, so for those people who want to show the maximum power figures on the dyno, go with hard road tyres rather than sticky ones like these ones. He's got the car set up mainly for twisties and cornering, so he's got good suspension setup. He's also got good wheels and tyres. We are on an all-wheel drive dyno with this car. It is again going to probably show less power than if we were just running the rear axle, as there's more losses now, power going through both axles. Okay, beautiful car, nice bodywork. Interior is mostly standard. It's got a plug-in Haltech Platinum Pro ECU. It runs quite nice actually, very impressed with the tune-up he's done on it all by himself. This is the look of the engine bay, very nicely presented, extremely neat. Using mostly standard GTR parts with intakes, intake air boxes. Obviously airflow meters are still in there, but it's a map sense system, so he's retaining the standard GTR engine bay look. We've still got the standard intercooler. It's a good idea to check the cars out every 6 months or every 12 months, especially if they're highly stressed engines. That way you get to pick up problems that are happening in the early stages, gives you longer time to deal with those problems, as well as with big powerful engines. If you do have a problem, it's a good idea to catch it early before it hurts the engine. I'd like to run you guys through what we're going to do. We're going to run the car through 3 different boost settings. We're going to start low, Now the boost settings on this car is in this corner here that I'll zoom into. Bottom right corner, you can see here we've got boost control target boost. It's 11.6 psi, which is going to be our first run. Then I'm going to turn the boost up to 17.4 psi. And then once we're happy with things there, next run is going to go to the maximum boost that this car's set up on, which is 26.1 psi. We've got the car set up to do our first power run. Prior to going into a power run on a dyno, we always load the vehicle up to make sure that it is stable. Four-wheel drive cars with especially a steering axle on a roller bed, you need to be careful that everything feels right before you do a power run. One of the most noticeable things on this car when I ran it was the amount of noise these grippy tires are actually generating. And again, it comes back to the comments I made earlier on about power loss. Now all this noise, heat, all of these extra things that these tires generate, this is all extra energy that the tires are robbing, that it's not going to make to the rollers in terms of power that we're going to read. For this car, when we're going for the power run, we're going to start unusually low because we wanted to get some logs from the engine down low in the rev range. We're going to start at around 1600 RPM, and then for the first run we're going to about 7800 on this engine. Normally we would start the power run a little bit higher. We would start from around 2,500-3,000, or at least in a rev range where we're likely to be demanding maximum power from the engine. Into second gear, into third gear, and into fourth, the gear that we're going to do the power run in. All right, full throttle. Starting from 3000 RPM. It is more representative of the rev range that it's likely to get used for full throttle, and hence we're going to start our runs from 3000 to give the turbos a little bit more of a head start with a little bit more boost, because starting from 1500 there's not enough exhaust flow to get the turbos boosting and getting the turbines driving. So when we start from 3000, and we'll compare the results on the dyno, the engine is going to make more boost initially before the start of the run, and because of that we're going to hit peak boost earlier during the power run, and that is the reason why we're starting from 3000, so we can get some recordings of what the engine does when it's run under those conditions. Going to go to maximum boost. Here we are, 26.1 psi target boost. Alright, we're on 411 kilowatts at all four wheels. That's actually a pretty good number running these four sticky tires. In comparison, on my dyno, this would have been 450 kilowatts in the rear wheel drive mode, and perhaps even higher once we have hard rubber. That's not as sticky, that doesn't rob as much horsepower. So that's a pretty good number. Even more impressive for me that this guy's tuned it all himself. This is looking really, really good. So going through the graph here, we've got 0 to 500 kilowatts on that axis, and on the engine RPM we've got 3000 RPM to 8000 RPM. And boost wise, here we are. This is our 25 psi boost reference line there, and I'll just zoom back out. So the bottom line here is our boost curve that goes on the axis on the right, and the upper line here is the axis over here for horsepower, or kilowatts in this case. Looking pretty damn good. Now on the power curve, we are starting to flatten off at about 6800 RPM. We think we may be lifting a blow-off valve. On lower boost we recorded 266 kilowatts at just 11 psi, which was nice, and then we had 380 kilowatts at 18 psi. Great car, great results. He's been at this for a while, I can tell, because the development in the car and the effort that's gone in, it's not an overnight project. I can see he's been chipping away at it for years, but it's at a very good place, and I must say we're very impressed. If you like this type of thing, you want to see more GTRs, you like what we present on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. We'll see you with the next video.